Everyone, and welcome to my rewrite of the sequel trilogy. Now, like many people, I wasn't the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy because it basically undid everything that came before and didn't add anything new to the universe besides lots of bad writing. So I thought I'd take a stab at rewriting it myself. And yes, if you're interested in this video or you like this video, please share it with as many Star Wars fans as you can, because I would really like a lot of interaction to see if you like where I went with it, you know, what I did with the characters, etc, etc. So yeah, so let's jump into this. So we're going to start off with the prologue. Now, the prologue, most of it will be in the title crawl, but other bits of information will be shared throughout different scenes in the film. You know, so it won't be just one big lore dump at the start. It'll be a basic outline and then fill in information throughout the movie. Yeah. Now, of course, I'm going old school with pen and paper here because it's just the way I write. Now, 30 years have passed since the Emperor was killed by Darth Vader and Luke. But it took a further 4 years and more to find and hold trials for most of the Empire's personnel. The troopers, officers, though some escaped being held accountable by fleeing to the unknown regions at the edge of the Outer Rim. For those that had been caught or surrendered, they became a logistical problem for the Republic, which was only really beginning to rebuild itself. They couldn't hold all the guilty across the Republic in buildings and ships for years until they built thousands of new prisons. So instead, they made the almost unpopulated planet of Tatooine a prison planet where the convicted Empire forces would be given materials to build their own houses, technology to create power for the new settlements, farming equipment, etc., etc. No ships or anything like that, just survivability. The only real punishment came in the form of not being allowed to leave the planet until their sentence was finished, which was blockaded by Republic forces. It was not a perfect solution, and over time a number of problems would come from this. One of the problems with paper, you have to keep turning it over. After the Senate had been re-elected and reformed, some significant changes had to be made. The war had taught them that without a Republic military, any system or systems could raise an army and take control again. A bill was passed to form the Republic Defense Service, where most of the 1,024 worlds that made up the Republic would provide funding and 80,000 recruits, with the smaller planets providing what they could. So they would end up with around 80 million soldiers and personnel. Until the RDS could be build its own ships and vehicles, many of the old Empire ships were repurposed to protect the Republic. The second part of the RDS bill stated that no signatory world could have a military numbering more than 10,000, with limited military ships and vehicles. The third part of the RDS bill ensured that the RDS would be neutral, as people who fought for, of course, the Empire wouldn't be allowed in, but people who fought for the rebellion could only serve a limited time until the new military was fully operational. That way they couldn't turn around and say, well, it's full of rebels and they're picking on us because we supported the Empire, etc., etc. The Senate also banned cloning in the Republic space, but also added a section in the bill that if cloning operations were operating outside the Republic, a vote could be held to see if they should go outside of the Republic space and deal with them themselves. As the Senate became the voice of the Republic again, Princess Leia was voted in as Supreme Chancellor. Though over time the memory and effects of the Empire faded. The politicians returned to their own selfish ways, and Leia stepped down after 14 years when a new Supreme Chancellor was voted in. General Solo, thanks to his experience as a smuggler, aided in tracking down Empire forces hiding inside Republic space, and helped in the early stages of the RDS's creation. As the years passed, Han and Leia were married and had 3 children. Anakin, the oldest, and then the twins Jason and Gianna. I'm not 100% sure I'm pronouncing Johnson correctly. It could be Jason or some variation, but you'll just have to excuse me for that. Which they raised at their home on Naboo, Leia's mother's home world. After an emotional farewell, Chewbacca returned to Kashyyyk to help rebuild after the battle there, where he eventually became an advisor to the chieftain and started a family of his own. General Coruscant returned to the Cloud City and resumed control of the mining operation, and after a few years was voted into the Senate as Bespin Senator, a position he now holds to this day. After the fall of the Empire and the death of his father, Luke returned to Dagobah to meditate and contemplate his and the Jedi Order's future. He came to understand there were many reasons for the fall. If the Order, a main one being... He came to understand there were many reasons for the fall of the Order, a main one being that the Order had become subservient to the Senate, its operations heavily regulated and mandated by Senate politicians' agendas and whims, which meant the Order had little chance to help the people who actually needed it. So he would rebuild the Order on Dagobah at the edge of the swamp, where there was actually some farmland. With the help of Leia, he was able to obtain the assets the Order owned and recovered technology, training equipment and archives from the now empty and neglected temple on Coruscant. To further the new Jedi Order, he negotiated a treaty with the Senate to allow Jedi to operate inside the Republic, though their activities would be limited and would have to work alongside a Republic representative to the Jedi and each member world's own judicial system. Once the main compound was built, Luke started to travel throughout the planets and systems of the Outer Rim, searching for new Padawans and helping anyone who needed it. While doing so, he met and married Mara Jade, and had 2 children, Owen and Padme. Luke's first 10 Padawans included his own son Owen and his niece and nephew Gianna and Jansen. With his first class, he made another large change in the Order by encouraging at least one family member to come to the compound to be an emotional support for the Padawan. And those family members could also join the Order as teachers in subjects like maths, robotics, piloting, or just help run the compound, things you didn't actually need the Force to be able to do. And because of this, the Order grew strong, as it was no longer a closed up, cold group who had no real control of what they did in their lives, to an open and welcoming Order who, at least for the thousands of planets outside the Republic, could help anyone. As the years passed, the new Jedi Order grew and even made treaties with planets that were impressed with the actions of the new Order. I'm going to have to take a drink now because all this talking is making me a little dry in the throat. I probably should cut this bit out, but well. Anyway, Count Dooku's family was one of the richest in the Republic. When he became a Jedi, though over the years had to accept that the Jedi had lost its way. When he shared his realization with Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon had agreed with many of Count Dooku's views, but would not join him in trying to reform the Order. He was still a true believer in the prophecy and wanted to see it fulfilled. So without being able to find support in the Order, he sought it outside the Order and became an apprentice of Darth Sidious, learning the aspects of the dark side that had been forbidden in the Order. In his years as Darth Sidious's apprentice, and as well as being an educated man, he could see a flaw in the Emperor's plan, and so he never really believed it would work as history had taught him that no group of people who were enslaved or controlled through fear would stay so, as they would always yearn for freedom. If you were going to lead them, you had to have them ask you to take control of them. He also learned the dark side, while it could make you more powerful, also had its limitations. It was all or nothing. There was no room for nuance or options. Count Dooku came to his own truth that day, that to be truly powerful you had to use both sides of the Force, both light and dark in equal amounts, but surrender to neither, to create your own path. 10 years before the Clone Wars, he began to train his own apprentice, which was a secret to both the Order and Darth Sidious, his son Baron Almarin Dooku. After hearing of his father's death by the betrayal of Darth Sidious and Anakin, and then of course followed by the fall of the Empire, Almarin understood his father had been right about power and control. So he began building his own order known as the Garu, or Grey Jedi, who would use both light and dark side of the Force, so that over time the Garu order could do things both ways. It would help people the way the Jedi Order do, but would be more authoritarian like the Empire and the dark side, and would do this for anybody who asked them for help. Darth Sidious had always felt the conflict in his apprentice, first as Anakin and then as Darth Vader. He also believed Darth Deminos, I believe the name is, rule of two was arrogant and short-sighted. So Darth Sidious took on a second apprentice who, unlike Vader, who was a corrupted, basically teenager / adult at the time, this apprentice would be trained from birth to be pure Sith, who would follow on his work if he failed. So that's the basic prologue. Again, a lot of it will be in the title crawl to try and build up the history of this world. So now we're going to move on to the actual Star Wars Part 7. Now, Part 7 in the sequel trilogy was called Force Awakens. Sorry, Force Awakens. But I do mean Farce Awakens because, well, it was a farce, let's be honest. My title is The New Order. Not very imaginative, I'll grant you, but still. So, anyway, opening scene, and this is not novel, by the way. This is basically an outline of scenes for the movie. It's not going to have 100% full dialogue. It's going to be a brief outline of each scene. Yeah. So we open up with Luke on Coruscant. He's walking through the old Jedi temple. You know, something he really had no connection with because he never went there. You know, he never trained there. It's just a building to him. So we have him looking contemplative when he's walking down through and outside the door to finalize the sale of it. Yes, because remember, the Jedi Temple is a piece of prime real estate on the prime planet of the galaxy. So he should be able to make quite a bit of money from it, or credits, or whatever Star Wars news. But yeah, so we see that, and we see him finalising the deal with, I don't know, probably a group. I don't know if it would be the Senate representative, or maybe there is actually, estate agents on Coruscant. I'm not 100% sure, but there will be somebody there for him to sell it to. Now, while walking back to the spaceport, he feels the force as he is pickpocketed. So he stealthily follows the thief, I think that's basically a self-explanatory. It's just a quick scene, no talking, just Luke walking down through the streets, with the senses open, because again, he still wants Padawans, so he will have his force powers open, if you will, and senses, the force in this thief, because they have, quick reactions to be a pickpocket. And he follows her, back to her apartment. In the apartment, again, this is each scene. I probably should say scene 3, 4, etc. But I don't actually have them numbered, so I could lose my place. I could lose my place anyway because it's me. But we'll power through. So basically, we see Rey get back to her apartment. Well, we're not meant to know it's Rey yet, but we know it's Rey. Because I did want to use at least some characters from the sequel trilogy to put into this one. Not a lot, I'll grant you. In fact, I think I only used one. Rey. Well, I used Rey. Anyway, we see her getting back to her apartment, and it's run down. It's in a crappy building. It's full of junk. There's a lot of robotics because Jedi are good at that sort of thing. So it's not great. And Luke then comes in and confronts her, and after a very tense conversation, he convinces her that that she has the Force, and would she like to come back to Dagobah with him to join the New Order. So at the end of it, she does accept. Then Luke and Rey return to the Falcon, where she meets Anakin, who now owns and pilots the Falcon, which is nice. Almarin Dooku and Latrell is basically second in command. Discuss sending his son Aaron on a mission to stop a group of slavers on Morel, because he has had, what would you say, issues with controlling the Force. He can, most of the time he can control it, but it's when the extremes, in the heat of battle or a highly emotional moment, is when he can lose his focus. So they're discussing whether or not it's a good idea to take him on this mission. But in the end, Almarin says we have to know one way or the other, can he do it, and we have to know, is he ready? So yes. Then Latrell, we see Latrell leading Aaron onto their ship, and Aaron is a little nervous to be going on his first mission, rightfully so, because he himself knows he has these issues with maintaining control. Just like normal day, no problem, but at the high point, high emotional issues. So yes, I probably explained that far more than I had to, but yeah. So I surely really made a lot more coffee. Yes. On their way to Dagobah, we're on the Falcon. Now there will be. I probably should have said at the start, but there should be pictures to, sort of represent. They're not going to be perfect pictures, because there's only so much I can find on the internet, and well, I'll tell you now, you don't want me drawing anything, because stick figures aren't that imaginative. So yeah, anyway, so there should be things to spur your imagination as we go through this. Yeah. On their way to Dagobah, Rey, after expressing that the Falcon is a pile of junk, a little callback, Anakin then turns around and tells her the history of the Falcon. About his dad owning it, about what it did during the war, about how it was used after the war with his father, helping round up the last of the Empire. You see, as I said, a lot of the prologue stuff will be not only in Technical, but through the scenes. Yes, right. We'll try and power through this as quick as possible, but it probably won't be a short video, so yeah. I probably should have said that at the start. Now, I hope you're comfy, and sorry, I'm going off on one, or bobbling, or something like that. Anyway, Latrell and Aaron arrive on Morel and begin their search for the slavers in one of the many nearby villages. Then the Falcon lands, and Rey is a little awed at the new compound and the activity going on around it. Luke begins to show her around the compound buildings, you know, the temple, etc., and finally her quarters. You know, so that'll be probably a 5-minute scene plus, because we're going to see them come down out of the Falcon, you know, walking around. You know, it's going to be a wide shot coming down into her as they go through the town, or the compound. You know, I don't know if compound is the right word. I have to say that. You know, is it a compound? You know, do you count the entire compound as the temple, or is it just the temple building? You know, so maybe if you have a better idea for the word for compound, but I think compound sort of works. You know, maybe I should have called it the Jedi Village. I'm not 100% sure on the compound thing, but I'll go with it for now because I have it written down. And again, you will notice this quite a lot. I will now and again just go off and babble a bit, you know. So yeah. Anyway, where was I? Blah blah blah. Right. Latrell. I made up her name, and I'm not 100% sure of the correct way to pronounce it, because her name is Latrell, spelt L-A-T-A-E-L. So I'm not 100% if that is the correct pronunciation of the own character I created and named. Anyway, Latrell and Aren find the slavers encampment outside a mine. They separate and take different routes to attack the compound from both sides. Now again, it's hard to find battle scenes in Star Wars of Jedi which are not the main characters, and again, as I said, I can't draw, so you know, let the imagination flow with you, everybody. The battle is short, and as after the first group of guards is killed, a few of the slavers take off in a hover truck. Latrell then goes to begin freeing the slaves and check the mine for more guards. Aren is deeply affected by what he sees in the slave camp, because we're going to see, you know, slaves that are basically skeletal figures. There'll be dead lying everywhere. It's going to be pretty fucking gruesome, let's put it like that, right? And when he is attacked by the slave boss, he brutally kills the slave boss by pinning him against a building and slowly cutting him open. Gutting him, in other words. Yeah, so I might think this is the first Star Wars movie that would have to be at least 15 rating, maybe. There's not going to be no bad language like modern F's and all that kind of crap, but you know, it's going to be it's basically like if you in booger, and I forgot the name. Can you believe that I'm actually have rewritten a Star Wars movie? I'm recording what I want to happen in the Star Wars movie, and I just forgot the name of a Star Wars movie. It's basically, you know, when Anakin walks in Revenge of the Sith, is it? It's a third one in the prequels. I know I'm a terrible Star Wars fan, okay? You don't need to tell me in the comments. But basically, if I had been directing it, you'd have seen those kids get killed. I'm just putting it like that. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of brutality in it. Then Latrell, you know, sees what's happened, grabs him, pulls him back from the dark side, and reminds him that they use the dark side, but they never embrace it. You know, because when he's actually doing the gutting, you can see little bits of like red flecks. You know the way a Jedi, or when someone becomes a Sith, their eyes change. We see a little bit of that in the close-up as he's gutting him, but it goes away when she pulls him back. We see Luke and Jason, or Johnson, again, another name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but at least I didn't create this one. This comes from the expanded EU, so yeah, if I can't pronounce it correctly, yeah. So Luke and Jason, or Johnson, or him, begin Rey's training by asking her to move objects, feel emotions, touching the Force, and of course, as a little callback to the prequels, we're going to have the little mirror thingy that shows different things on it, just for fun. Again, there'll be a few little callbacks throughout. Yes, well, you'll get to know the callbacks because I'll read them out, and you'll know when I'm an awesome narrator, aren't I? Anyway, the Senator of Naboo visits Leia to tell her about a new Jedi Order called the Garu, and that he has heard whispers that a few senators are talking about banning the Jedi from Republic space. Now, this scene, of course, will be, Senator comes in, very respectful to Leia because she was at one time the Supreme Chancellor. They have become friends over the years because they will know each other because they're both politicians. It's really to explain a lot. This is another scene where you will get a bit of the stuff at the start and the prologue and stuff built out. So yeah, Leia's now learning all this new information. So then we go to Arn speaks to his father about what happened on Merrill. And Almarin explains to him again that the dark side's ability to be seductive, quick, strong and powerful is what will, entice him to embrace the dark side. But it always leads to the loss of oneself in hatred and pain. And tells him to keep meditating as he and Latrell are going to seek an accord with another planet who will want the Garu as protection. Now, not the whole planet. Some of the treaties both Luke and Honorin make for their different orders will sometimes not be a full planet. It could be one city. It could be an outlying array of villages in the middle of nowhere that the government just couldn't be bothered looking after themselves. So slowly and surely they'll be building up to having big treaties with, some of the smaller planets, lightly populated and stuff, for full control of running the security, if you will, the policing, and army situations that come up. It will be the Jedi and the Garu who actually do the defending. So it's not just, the Jedi running around and the Garu running around, doing stuff. They now actually have to, when called, turn up. They can't go on a mission here, then go on something else, but they call. Yeah, you get the general idea. Or you should get the general idea. Of course, I'm not sure I have the general idea. But okay, so Leia and Han. Am I sinking? I'm sorry, my old gaming chair I had broke, and I got this. It was sitting in the garage for like years, and dusted it off. But it's quite spongy, so I might shrink as. Why do you care about this? Let's get back to this. Let's get back to the Star Wars thing. You can worry about my chair in your own time. Anyway, so yes, Leia and Han, visit Luke on Dagobah to inform him of what the Naboo, is it Nabooian or Nabidian? No, it's not Nabidian because Nabidia is a real country in Africa. So Nabooian, the Nabooian Center. Right, the Nabooian Center. Right, we'll try this again. Leia and Han visit Luke on Dagobah to inform him of what the Nabooian Center Senator told her. And while she is doing that, there'll be, Luke and Han will hug, Leia and Luke will hug. There's a lot of hugging. Everybody hugs. While Leia and Luke go off to discuss those, Han goes to check on Anakin and the Falcon. Yes, and he checks up on how. So it's basically two scenes. We'll have them all hugging, and Luke and Leia will be talking about this as they walk to the compound, and then we'll have another scene of Han and Anakin talking, how's the ship going, just something simple, it won't be a close-up, it'll be sort of like a far-out shot. We'll just see him in the distance, more hugging, pointing at the ship and stuff, it'll be light, right. Anyway, so after they talk, and had their day, Luke says goodbye to Han and Leia, and then takes a small ship and leaves the compound. The trip isn't long, and he lands not far from an old hut, and when he looks at it, he smiles, and we all know what that hut is, don't we, everybody? Yes, or you should. And no, it's not an outhouse for those who haven't never watched Star Wars. Though if you've never watched Star Wars, why are you watching this video? It definitely isn't for my handsome face. Luke enters the Yoda's old hut, and he has kept it in, you know, livable condition. You know, it's somewhere he goes to be alone, you know, to get back in touch with the Force and really keep himself at top shape with meditation and stuff. So it's still livable, you know. Anyway, and begins to meditate, and Yoda appears. Luke tells him about the Garu Jedi and asks if they are a threat like the Sith. Yoda tells him, and no, I'm not doing a Yoda impression because I suck at it, and yeah. So Yoda tells him that he cannot sense the goals of the Garu, but then warns him that the Sith will always be the real threat. Luke thought that with the Emperor's death, the Sith had become extinct, and I am shrinking. Yeah. Anyway, Yoda explains that in their arrogance before the fall of the Jedi, they had believed that killing Darth Sidious would bring, and the Sith would bring balance to the Force, but they had forgotten this major point, that good cannot exist if evil does not exist. So therefore, as long as the Jedi exist, the Sith, that was a new word, the Sith, the Sith must also exist. You know, one cannot exist without the other, which is something I think the original movies, you know, and the prequels, you know, especially the prequels, you know, bring balance to the Force by destroying one side. You know, yin and yang, metaphor. So yeah, Luke asks, so the war can never be won, and Yoda answers no, and says that being one with the Force had brought him a wisdom he never knew before, that the war between good and evil never actually ends, as long as their life exists. And it's not about winning against evil, but saving as many innocents as possible from suffering. You know, I think yes, right. Yoda then advises Luke to visit the Garu and learn if they are an ally or enemy. Luke agrees to this and then says goodbye. So, and we see Yoda fade away, and Luke, you know, just sort of content, but cautious as well, because now he has a new mission now. You know, so I want this scene to be a really, while explaining a lot of what's happening, I also wanted to sort of take away the stuff, the whole bring balance to the Force thing, because like it never made sense, you know, as I said earlier. So there's no point in me saying it again. And if you didn't hear me say it, you can rewind and hear me say it again. Right. So so the next scene, we see a senator from an unknown place for now goes to visit a fierce-looking man inside the old Jedi temple on Coruscant. We learn in this conversation that he was one of many of the senators, and or you know, because of the senators who are no longer there, but you know, who are now senators who supported the Emperor. But we know he supported the Empire when it wasn't fully functional. So, like, he became a senator in his like 30s, so he looks about 60-ish, right? Or maybe not, you know, because I'm not 100% sure how different races age in, you know, Star Wars. I know another brain, yeah, Wookiees. I know Wookiees live for like 200-300 years or something. Yoda lives for 900, so for all I know, this guy looks 10. You know, but anyway, right. So we learn that, and the cloaked figure tells him to begin a coalition of senators that supported the Empire, bring them back together again, and to bring in new ones who want a new Sith Empire, who actually liked how the Empire was run by the Sith, and that they will all be rewarded for the service. Yeah. And we all know what rewarded for their service means. The senator leaves, and two more hooded figures approaches, and we learn that this is Darth Deminos, spelled D-A-M-I-O-S, and his apprentices, Lord Furcas, F-U-R-C-A-S, and Lady Kacha, K-C-H-A. And yes, these are taken from mythology, so you might know one or two of them. He explains Palpatine had been arrogant, wanting to be unseen, leading the Senate and the Empire, but he would control it from the shadows, and that you cannot fight an enemy you don't know exists. You know, he doesn't want to be at the forefront. He'll want a potsy. You know, the Empire was very brash. Look at me, I'm Mr. Evil and cool. You know, whereas he doesn't even want anybody to know he exists. You know, which I think is a lot more, what's the word? Insidious? No, sneaky. I'm sure someone will come up from a word and tell me in the comments. Right, so on the Falcon, Anakin tells Luke, Rey and Johnson that they have arrived at the sector where the Garu were last seen. Rey knows the Force is powerful, but find the Garu with it, you know, and Luke tells her that it only requires training, focus, and a little bit of luck. And then Luke begins meditating, you know, sending out his senses for any, you know, Force user nearby, you know, that way, trying to connect via the Force with him. Now, it won't be like in the sequels where they're literally standing in front of each other and talking and passing lightsabers and crap. No, it'll just be a sense. There's literally no contact beyond that. It's just sensing someone over here and then the other person sensing and coming together. That's the way this is going to go. It's not all the other stuff you saw. Anyway, so Luke begins meditating. Leia even visits the Supreme Chancellor on Coruscant and asks if the rumours concerning banning the Jedi from the public space is true. The Chancellor assures her it's only a small minority of old senators who lost a lot when the Empire fell, and a couple of ambitious senators who want to try and make a name for themselves, you know, who think they will get something out of it. We also learn again some of the information from the prologue in this scene. Then outside we see Leia leave the office, and Han is outside, and Leia turns to Han and says, "We'll be staying on Coruscant for a while so she can monitor the situation with what's going on." 4 days have passed, and Rey says to Johnson that maybe Luke, who has been meditating most of the time, has actually fallen asleep and they need a lot more luck. Luke smiles, opens his eyes and says they will be in the area soon, and that Anakin should set down on the nearest habitable planet. You know, I want that to be a light-hearted moment, you know. Latrell asks, because they're also in a spaceship, asks if this is a good idea as they watch the Falcon head for a planet, and Almiron gets up from meditating and stands behind her and RN and tells them he senses no hostility or deception, only caution and curiosity, and asks Latrell to follow them down onto the planet. Luke and the rest leave the Falcon after Luke tells them to leave their lightsabers and weapons on board and wait and watch as the Garu ship lands. Almarin, Latrell and Aaron land and walk out to meet the waiting Jedi. This should be interesting, Latrell says. Now, both parties walked within a few feet of each other, and greetings and names are exchanged. Almarin, they keep it light-hearted but cautious. Friendly, but you're ready if stuff goes south. Almarin asks the Jedi's intentions, and Luke assures him, telling them truthfully that they only want to help people outside the Republic they couldn't help before. And a little about the New Order. When Luke asks to see him, Almarin also answers truthfully that the Garu's goals are almost the same as the Jedi's, but using both light and dark. And when they can take control of, when they sign a treaty and are asked to do something here, it's going to be more stricter. It's not just going to be like if the Jedi come in, stop some bad guys, and then leave again. The Garu will come in, deal with the bad guys, and then set up, or they're not laws, more guidelines or rules as to try and stop that from happening again. Basically they'll put the fear of God into whoever did the thing so that it won't happen again, to try and lessen it. A lot stricter than the Jedi. And a rule more as peacekeepers and protection. As neither side has any hostile intentions towards the other, they agree to a cordial agreement to let each order do their own thing, since they're very separate places of space. One's over here, one's over here. There's hundreds of thousands of planets between the two, so the likelihood that anytime soon they're going to have any interaction is slim. But again, let them do their thing, and if there ever is a conflict about a certain situation, maybe a planet asks both of them to be there or something, they'll actually meet with each other again and try to come up with a peaceful solution. Luke then informs Almarin of Yoda's warning about the ongoing war of the Sith, and Almarin agrees with Yoda and will stay vigilant for them. They shake hands and both return to the ships. Luke talks with the group about the meeting, and while the two orders may never be allies, at least hopefully they will never be enemies. I don't believe I've talked this much for a very long time. Leonhan on Coruscant. Leia tells Han that from her contacts she has heard support for the anti-Jedi bill is actually growing, and about how the meeting with the Garu went. And also she feels a darkness on the horizon. Han comforts her and smiles, but is concerned in himself and says he'll reach out to some of his old contacts to see what he can find out. Aren is training with another apprentice when the other apprentice accidentally cuts Aren, and Aren loses control and kills him. Then, immediately realizing what he has done, regrets it and breaks down, drops to his knees, starts crying, with a little bit of a wild look, like, what is happening to me? He's starting to come apart, So this is going to be another intense scene. Then Almarin tells his son he has become unstable with the Force, and that as much as it hurts him, Almarin must banish him from the Order, and that Aaron should seek a place of solitude to find his balance. He's not banishing him forever, just for as long as Aaron can find his own path, bring back his control, because obviously meditating in the Garu temple isn't working, and he can't endanger the lives of the other Garu, so he has to at least go for a time. As Aaron is leaving, Latrell places a hand on Aaron's shoulder as he passes and says to him, because remember, she has been his father's best friend, she has watched him grow up, so she tells him, you will return one day, to be encouraging. We see the new Darth informs his apprentices he must leave to take advantage of an unforeseen opportunity, and they will continue to sway Centaurs in his absence. As Darth here has actually felt Oren's, instability and wants to take advantage of that. That's what this situation is. We might even have a scene where he's sitting or meditating, and he opens his eyes after Oren kills him, and have a little cut scene in between the discussion and stuff. But again, I'll probably never, I'll never make this movie because, but that's the way I would make it. It would be when he kills the guy, there'd be a cut scene to Darth Deminos' eyes opening, to this thing, and then we would have this scene, as they go in order as they have. Bobbling again. Rey passes her test to become a member of the Order, and Luke takes her on as his Padawan. Remember, this is not the big Jedi test to actually be a full Jedi. This is just the test to become a Padawan. So yeah, and they have a small celebration. It'll just be a small thing, maybe 20-30 people. All the named characters who are there. Just like little sandwiches, sausage rolls. Nothing major. Did they have sausage rolls in Star Wars? I've never saw one, so... Well, let's say they now have sausage rolls in Star Wars. Yes, that's my canon. Sausage rolls in Star Wars. Right. Oren, knowing that he is in danger because of his weakness, lands on the Sith homeworld to confront and defeat the dark side within him. He knows the dark side is always going to be there, but he wants to be able to gain control over it, master it, but not be its slave. That's his thinking anyway. Oren walks through an old city, hearing whispers of the past. He must try harder, control himself, choose a path. Basically this scene is, if you've ever played Mass Effect, well, in Mass Effect 3, and let's not get into the ending of Mass Effect 3 because we'll be here for several hours with me basically just cursing a lot. But basically, the dream sequence when Shep is going through the blasted forest, the old park that's been destroyed by nuclear fire, chasing the kid, you hear voices. Now, of course, I was the ultimate Paragon and didn't lose anybody in Mass Effect 2, but as the game goes on, you lose, like in number 1, in the dream sequence, you'll actually hear whoever you chose to live, Caden or bigger. I forgot her name. Ashley. Yes. Ha. Caden or Ashley. If you chose, Ashley to live, you'll hear Caden's voice at first, and then as the game goes on, you'll hear Morden's. Something like that. There'll be whispers in the dark coming towards him. Boy, that took a long time to explain a small scene. Anyway, he then sees a hooded figure standing at the entrance of an old temple, who welcomes him. Darth Deminos, then using cunning and manipulation to persuade Arn to train with him, because he can only confront and defeat and control the dark side by actually embracing it. And so after some thought, Arn agrees to betray it. So yes, it's a very dark, collection of shots, that entire scene, and Darth Deminos will be, just being a prick basically and using this poor kid, so yeah. Then we have mixed montages of Rey training with Luke and Aaron training with Darth Deminos, and to show the passage of time, we will see, where when you're Padawans you get your head shaved here and you have a wee ponytail. I don't, obviously, but The shade here, well, slowly as through the training sessions of them training each other, we'll see Rey's hair grow. When it comes to Oren, we'll also see his hair grow, but we'll also see like things in the background, you know, since Darth Deminos and Oren are on this planet, you'll see the old temples start to become cleaned up. You know, they'll be cleaned up. All the debris will be away. There'll be new paintings and stuff and banners, and you know, to show the passage of time that this is several months. You know, or I think I know it's months. It's further on where explained how long it has been, but it takes over the course of a few months of this happening. So not only will the characters change, but also the backgrounds to show the passage of time, or at least that's what I'm hoping. Then we go to Leia and Han on Coruscant talking with Senator Lando Calrissian, yes, who informs them that at least 200 senators are now openly supporting the Jedi ban. And of course we'll have a bit more the start of, you know, how Lando is, you know, has really come into his role as senator after Cloud City. You know, again, a lot of the prologue is in these scenes. After he leaves, Han informs Leia that he has gained little information from his own contacts, and that more than a few of them have disappeared or been killed. And they agree whether it be a group of like the Trade Federation or the Sith, someone is working hard against the Order and the Republic. Darth Deminos enters the council chamber in the old Jedi temple, which is his throne room, where his apprentices are waiting for him. He informs them that he has a weapon on Korriban, waiting for an opportunity to use it. The Lady Sith informs him that for the past few months Leia and Han have been rallying support against the anti-Jedi bill, and they have at least gained almost equal numbers of senators to them. Darth Deminos then orders that Leia and Han must die, but by accident, not tied in any way to any senator or the Sith or their supporters, which I think is, quite frankly, a very smart move. You know, coming out and just having Lord and Lady Sith, you know, cut them down will be expose a lot of things. So making it look like an accident, I think, you know, is in line with Sith thinking or Sith goals. Han finishes working on his old blaster. Then Len and Han take a taxi limo, you know, some fancy hover vehicle, you know, in the Star Wars universe, to go to dinner. Leia then picks up his hand and says his hands are dirty, and Han smiles at Leia and takes her hand in his and says, "So are yours." You know, sort of a callback to Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Yes, callback. No, hang on, no, Empire Strikes Back. Bugger, got those mixed up. So yeah, a callback to that scene I thought would be nice. And then boom, hover, like a haulage vehicle, like HGV, lorry, truck, whatever you want to say, Star Wars universe, hits their limo, sending it into a building, and it crashes through into the building. You know, minor explosions, you know, but basically Han and Leia are now dead. I know that's not going to be very... I know there's going to be a lot of people who are like, no, they want to see, you know, Han and Leia die fighting the battle, but let's be honest, this is more in line with how the Sith would work. You know, not openly doing something. You know, it would be nice for them to go out in a blaze of glory, but again, in this context, they have to die accidentally. They have to die this way, which is why I thought giving them a nice little moment to call back to their previous original movie was nice before this happened. You know, to sort of ramp up the emotional impact of them dying in this way. You know, or at least that's my thinking. So yeah, Luke is talking to Rey when he feels their deaths. A moment later, a saddened Johnson and Gianna enter the room, and Luke walks over and embraces them. You know, they felt their parents die. Something bad has happened, and you know, I want this to be a really, you know, emotional scene. Darth Deminos walks onto an overlook in the Jedi Temple and looks down at his apprentices and a group of about 50 rough-looking teenagers, and announces it's time for the acolytes to begin their training. You know, so after, you know, this, you know, he has gotten rid of Han and Leia, a block who's blocking him from able to get his goals. It's now time to take the Sith to a new level, and that is acolytes. Now, they're not going to be true Sith, but they are going to be basically his highly skilled assassins and soldiers. You know, just they are going to be trained in maybe some uses of the dark side, but it will be minimal, and they are going to be overall expendable. You know, but anyway. So then the funeral of Leia and Han takes place on Naboo, a truly massive affair with the Jedi, all the old forces from the rebellion, a few senators, and some of Han's old friends. So you're going to see a lot of people who survived the original movies. You know, Wedge, for example, will be there. You'll have some of the, well, a lot of the people were old when, you know, in the original. This is like 30 years later, so yeah. Yeah, there'll be probably a few familiar faces. You know, Chewie will be there. You know, as I said, you know, Senator like Lando will be there. So it's going to be basically a lot of the old characters in the old movie saying goodbye to their friends, and the new characters like Rey, Johnson, Gianna, you know, feeling the effects of the war with the Sith for the first time. You know, it's going to be a combination of things in this scene. You know, so I think it would be again another in your face, and it's not going to be like the scene of Qui-Gon being burned. They're actually going to be put into a mausoleum. You know, or what's left of them will be put in a mausoleum where you can go and visit. You know, so that's the way this is going to be handled. Because remember, while Han wasn't a Jedi and Leia had the Force, but was never fully trained in it, and never wanted to be fully trained in it, and so she was put in the mausoleum inside the big building with Han. So yeah, that's how Episode 7, The New Order, ends. You know, with their deaths. You know, I know it's not like a high point to end on, but I think I wanted it to be the sort of, you know, gut punch. You know, what's the word? Bugger. Like a, what's the word? Yeah, limbo. You know, everything's in sort of a limbo now. Someone's doing something, but no one knows who it is. They think it's a Sith, but they have no proof and have no evidence that Sith are about or where they are. So it leaves you questioning, you know, what's going to happen next, and that's what I wanted from that. You know, big impactful scene. Where do we go from here to really get, you know, fans of if this movie was made, to really, you know, await what the second movie, what's going to happen. So yeah. So there you go. That's the prologue for my sequel trilogy, and the part 7, The New Order, of the first movie in my sequel trilogy. So again, as I said at the start of this video, share it far and wide with as many Star Wars fans as you know, because I would really like, you know, to see a lot of feedback on this. You know, and I'm a minuscule channel, so like, you know, there's only so much interaction I can normally have. So yeah, send it out far and wide. You know, let me know. Did I do good with the old characters on what they're doing now? Did I introduce the new characters well? You know, especially what you thought of Han and Leia's deaths. You know, was it a good move? You know, give me the feedback. I know that's what I want. So yeah, there you go. I think this is probably 40 plus minutes long at this point, or longer. So thanks for taking the time out of your lives to watch it. Awesome of you for doing so. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. And until I get part 8 done, thanks for watching.